Back to another videos. Today we discuss about the mass production of coffee. Meanwhile, coffee had been introduced in Brazil in 1727, although its cultivation did not gather momentum until independence in 1822. After this time, massive tracts and rainforests were cleared to coffee plantation. First in Viseu and Rio de Janeiro and later Solio, Brazil won for having essential now for coffee exports in 1800 to being a significant religion producer in 1830 to being the largest producer in the world by 1852. In 1920 Brazil exported around 70% of world coffee. Colombia, Venezuela and Venezuela export 15%, and old world production accounted for less than 5% of world export. Many countries in Central America took up cultivation in the latter half of the 19th century, and almost all were involved in large-scale displacement and exploitation of the indigenous people. Harsh conditions lead to many upspring coughs and bloody suppression and pleasure. The notable exception was Costa Rica, where lack of ready labor prevented the formulation of large farms. Smaller farms and more eligible conditions emulated unrest over the 19th and 20th centuries. Rapid growth in coffee production in South America during the second half of 19th century was matched by increase in consumption in developed countries. Through nowhere has his growth been as pronounced as in United States, where the high rate of population growth was compounded by a doubling of per capita consumption between 1860 to 1920. Through the United States was not the heaviest coffee drinking nation at the time. The Netherlands and Nordic countries all had comparable of high levels of per capita consumption due to its sheer size. It was already largest consumer of coffee. The world of 1860 by 1920, around half of all coffee produced worldwide was consumed in US. Coffee has become vital cash crop for many developing countries. Over 100 million people in developing countries have become dependent on coffee. As their primary source of income, it has become a primary export and economic backbone of African countries like Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, and Ethiopia, as well as many Central American countries. Many countries in Central America took up cultivation in lateral half of the 19th century, and almost all were involved in large-scale displacement and exploitation of indigenous people. Harsh conditions lead to many upspring coughs and bloody suppression of peasants. The notable exception was Costa Rica, where lack of ready labor prevented formulation. And large farms, smaller farms are more agricultural condition, embroiled unrest over 19th and 20th centuries. Rapid growth in coffee production in South America during the second half of 19th century was matched by increased consumption in development countries. Through nowhere has his growth being as pronounced in the United States, where a higher rate of population growth was compared to coffee drinking nation at the time. Belgium and Netherlands and Nordic countries all had comparable of high levels of per capita. Due to the sheer size, it had already the largest consumer of coffee. In world by 1960 and to 1920, around half of all coffee produced worldwide was consumed in US. Coffee has become a vital cash crop of many developing countries. Over 100 million people in developing countries have become dependent on coffee as their primary source of income. It has become as primary export and economic backbone of American countries like Uganda, Burundi, Emirates, as well as many Central American countries. Meanwhile, coffee has become introduced in Brazil in 1727, although the cultivation do not gather momentum until independence in 1822. After this time, massive trades, the rainforests were cleared for coffee plantation. First University of Radioactive to become a large producer in worldwide by 1852, 1990, 10, and 1990.